I grew up talking about the 2000s, right? So I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and the war on terror was a really interesting thing to observe happen in real time. Because if you grew up in the 90s, it was like everyone was like super cynical. It was like South Park and Howard Stern and Jerry Springer, and there was just a lot of like dissatisfaction with the system. People were bored. It was like, oh, the system, it's so banal and boring and oppressive, and it's just getting in the way of me, and this is the end of history, and we won the Cold War, and now it's just we're in this utopia of the United States that is now ruled by the human will. And it was just this very kind of anti-establishment mentality. And then 9/11 happened, and it was like somebody hit a switch and everybody turned into patriotic flag-waving robots. And it was just like, yes, sir, Mr. President. Yes, sir, government. Yes, sir, you do whatever you have to do, sir. You want more rights? Yeah, take them. Go ahead. Do whatever. Just take them. Take them. You want to invade a country? That's okay. Go. Well, yeah, I trust you. Go whatever you want to. And it was like legit. People like just turned off their critical brain and became scared and unthinkingly obedient to the Bush administration, which was filled with a bunch of people that adhered to neoconservative ideology, which is the idea that after the Soviet Union fell, it was the United States' opportunity to take out any country that was not aligned with us, that was sympathetic to the Soviet Union, that was hostile to our proxies in the Middle East. And there was no country that was strong enough to stop us. And it was our duty, like we were Alexander the Great, to go and knock off those governments through aggressive imperial behavior. Because at the end of the day, if every country has a government like the United States, well, we'll just be in a perpetual utopia of constant peace ruled by the benevolence of the United States, which we see that at the end of the Cold War is the right idea. That's the whole Francis Fukuyama end of history essay. So there was this group of people called the neoconservatives who advocated this James Bond villain-style global domination foreign policy. And since George W. Bush was a fucking idiot, a stupid daddy's boy moron idiot that didn't know what he was doing, all he knew was just to, run on his dad's name, he was such a vacant tool that all these neocon intellectuals got into his White House and implemented that plan. And the catalyst for that was 9/11, which, the response to 9/11 was totally disproportionate. And some of this is Monday morning quarterbacking, but like the idea from people like Howard Stern and all these other people are like, well, listen, we had an unprecedented attack at the U.S. Somebody's got to fucking die. We got to show our strength. We got to hit back. We got to hit something back. We got to hang something here, And so the response was not to do a more calculated anti-terrorist operation in Afghanistan. What we were going to do is we were going to rain hell and shock in Dresden and Hiroshima style, World War II shock and awe to go say, you bruise our cheek, we're going to break your back. That was kind of the attitude. And that led to a, 30-year military quagmire in Afghanistan, not 30-year, 20-year military quagmire in Afghanistan that we just got out of, but I'm not done. So then, right? Okay, so the real apple that they want to pick off the tree is Iraq, right? That's like one of the, like Wesley Clark, who I volunteered for when he ran for president in 2004, and I got to have lunch with him. He was really cool. Although I think NATO's got a lot of problems, and Wesley Clark ran NATO, and his whole thing was, and he didn't tell me this, but it's come out in interviews that he saw a list of countries of which were marked for death by these neoconservative intellectuals dating back as far as the early 90s. And it was like Iraq, Libya, Iran, Syria, Sudan, like all these countries that have all been overthrown coincidentally, right? And Iraq was a big oil-rich country, and these neocons had this domino theory that if you just knock off Iraq, you'll create a domino effect throughout the region. And Benjamin Netanyahu is there testifying before Congress saying to do this. So the Bush administration just did a total lying, wanton war of aggression where they just used 9/11 as they tried to say Iraq had something to do with 9/11. They had no evidence of that. Then they started saying Iraq was developing weapons of mass destruction. They were going to use a weapon of mass destruction, and we couldn't wait for a smoking gun to turn into a mushroom cloud. What do you mean we have to give you evidence? There's no time for evidence, man. There's going to be a mushroom cloud, and you're here looking for due process, and and then they get like Colin Powell to go to the UN with these like bullshit charts that mean like nothing and just ramble, right? And so the Bush administration was able to use the kind of vacant obedience of the American people, and when a country gets attacked, its leadership often becomes much stronger. So they were able to use all that political capital and naivete of the American people and utopian imperial bloodlust to wage a war in Iraq that turned into a bloody disaster that probably killed around 1 million people. I know the estimates have knocked around, but like in the neighborhood of 1 million people died as a result of that war, right? And that really pissed me off at the time. And I knew it was bullshit when it happened. And I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back. I got in arguments with my mom. I knew it was bullshit, that even the arguments they were making about going to war in Iraq made no sense. My thing at the time was, well, why don't you just try to finish the war in Afghanistan if like Afghanistan is so easy to knock off? It's like, it's clear Iraq does not have a weapon. You're going to be splitting your focus. If Afghanistan is the place that attacked us, which was way more complicated than that, they were just harboring the terrorists that attacked us. The terrorists that actually attacked us were coming out of Saudi Arabia, which was our proxy in the region that was our, giving us all this oil, so we couldn't fight with them. We just had to go bomb the hell out of Afghanistan to make a point. But the point is like, it didn't make any sense. Like, these guys were not presenting any evidence that Iraq had actual weapons of mass destruction. And then like the excuses started. Okay, well now we're spreading democracy and it's our duty to spread democracy. George W. Bush's daddy he tried to kill my daddy, and now I'm going to go get revenge for my father. Just this insanity, these just stupid moving targets that made no sense. And cable news and both Democrats and Republicans were just blindly supporting this. And it was like this kind of sick voyeurism. When the war first started and it looked like it was going well, people were like watching it like it was like the Battle of Bull Run, except they were safe. They weren't over there where the battle could spill over to them. They were just watching it on their TV like, oh, hey, did you see the war tonight? Like, I heard my mom's friends talking like that. So the Iraq War of the early 2000s really pissed me off and was a very kind of formative thing where I was like, this is a big red line. And if I ever see anything like this happening, I am going to call bullshit on it immediately. And sure enough, we're getting a war in Iran right now with exactly the same bullshit reasons. And like the tragedy of this situation is that it's like, no matter who you vote for, there's no getting out of this, right? Donald Trump, he got elected because his first term in office, he didn't start any new wars and he had a good economy. That's it, right? He was better on the border, he endured a lot of bullshit that was like, unfair things happening to him. Like, he was framed for treason, by like the media kept saying he was a Russian spy, the FBI kept saying, kept alluding to the fact that it was true with no evidence. You were having this revolving door of CIA people going on MSNBC, just constantly saying, like, treating him like he was like Saddam Hussein. Like, Trump was never treated like an American president on the news. We had sham impeachment trials. Just everything was thrown at him, and it was just like, yeah, he didn't start a new war and he had a pretty good economy. So, okay, there's that. So he gets reelected. And he gets reelected as an anti-war candidate, right? He's there saying, what was it, like on the PBD podcast or something? It was one of the podcasts he was on. And he was like, asked about Iran. He's like, We don't need regime change in Iran. We can't even handle our own stuff, let alone going to do a regime change war in Iran, you know? And Dick Cheney and all the neocons that had advocated for the Iraq war were all shitting their pants because Donald Trump did not start a war the first time he was in office, and he was taking these like anti-establishment, disobedient, more diplomatic postures. So people like Dick Cheney and his daughter were all endorsing Kamala Harris, and you know, people like William Crystal, who was an architect of the Iraq war, was freaking out, like, you know, oh, he's going to ruin the international order, and he's disrespectful to, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu, and all that. It was just like, okay, whatever. So Trump gets in, and he appoints some decent people to his cabinet, and he starts doing some good stuff, like diplomatically. Like, he gets a ceasefire in Gaza. He starts putting diplomatic pressure on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, although he's doing it in kind of a crude, insulting way, but, like, it's still whatever. He's trying to push for a peace deal there. It's like, okay. Then his domestic agenda is a mixed bag, you know, the tariffs could go one of two ways. It's like there's good intentions, but potentially careless consequences. Yes, wait, Tiger's happy she doesn't vote. Yeah, good on you. And then, like, yes, Trump is tightening up the border, and that is good for American workers, so they can't have their wages undercut. But then, you know, he's doing this, like, stupid, like, Dick Cheney-style black site stuff. Like, we're getting, like, a penal colony in El Salvador as a deterrent where we throw people who are in gangs or allegedly in gangs so that, you know, they can just be sent off to some, you know, pseudo-gulag somewhere to try to, you know, scare them and give them a taste of their own medicine and stuff like that. Nobody voted for that, okay? So it's like, okay, so things are plodding along. It's a mixed bag. Trump is generally still popular. And then, while he's negotiating a deal with Iran, Israel decides to, well, which incidentally, Trump lets Israel break the ceasefire that he brokers, right? Then Israel attacks Iran while Trump is negotiating a nuclear deal with Iran. And then rather than go and condemn Israel, Trump supports the attack. Like, this is total insanity. And it's like Trump went from like showing respect to his like MAGA working class base. These people like you know, Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, who's like his guru, or was his guru, or like these kind of like more true believer types, like, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know. And it's like, and just the kind of like the average American does not want, evangelicals I know don't even want a war like this. Like, they're sick and tired of these wars of neoconservative adventurism that do nothing other than just turn the U.S. into a global bad guy, right? And so Trump sides against them with the neocons who spent Trump's entire first term trying to destroy him. And the only thing I can think of is a couple of things. One, he took a bunch of money from, like, the Adelson family, who are, like, utopian Zionists, and that's not anti-Semitic, that's just a fact. And I think, you know, Zionism is fine as long as you do it, like, humanely and all this other stuff, but whatever. But they're all into this, like, greater Israel, Old Testament, you know, conquest bullshit, you know. The other thing is that I think really all it took to break Trump, you didn't have to try to assassinate him. You didn't have to try to impeach him on bullshit. You didn't have to try to, you know, have the CIA and the FBI run cover for the Bidens, you know, money laundering schemes so that Trump wouldn't get reelected in 2020. You know, like, you didn't need any of that stuff. You didn't need to manufacture riots in the summer of 2020. You didn't need anything. All you needed to do was give him some false flattery and tell him that he would get to build the hotels over the rubble of these new wars that these people were doing. But you know what's going to happen to him? And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to him. Trump has always been treated like a foreign dictator by the deep state, right? And what is the deep state, like the CIA, all those types of people? What do they do to a foreign dictator when they finally get him on their side? They use them, and then they fuck them. They kill them when they're done with it, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, okay? But what happened to Muammar Gaddafi, right? They broke them, they got them on their side, and then once they were done with them, they overthrew them and left them to the wolves, you know? And I mean, these people have a mafia mentality, like the deep state and all these institutions. They do have their roots in, like, you can go look into people talking about it. They have like roots in like organized crime and things like that, and have kind of gangster mentalities, right? So I'm telling you, man, you cut deals with these people after you've crossed them. It's like the same thing like Vince McMahon does. He brings in a wrestler who he's got beef with just so he can destroy them, you know, like. That's what, like, he'll bring him in and then humiliate him, like Terry Taylor or something like that, right? So Trump is playing a really stupid game that is totally destroying his base, totally destroying what's left of his legacy, ruining his second term before it even gets off the ground. And I mean, if this is all some kind of elaborate negotiating tactic that might work out through like the miracle of people like just being sane, fine, whatever. But like it is just mind-boggling how bad he is fucked up at the expense of his base, and just turning on everything that he's run on to go throw his lot in with people who have spent Trump's entire political career trying to undercut and destroy him. So and that's just not even to mention the just the total illegality of a war of aggression based on utter bullshit. Like, Iran might use a nuclear weapon they don't have. What does that even mean? Like, like, you know, let's even say Iran does get a nuclear weapon, which I don't think anybody should have, right? What are they going to do? Go give it to Hamas, and then Hamas goes and nukes Israel, and then a Palestinian state that they're working for is to deal with nuclear fallout? That, like, none of this makes any sense, right? Or Iran like launches a nuclear weapon and then they get smashed back by another nuclear power like the United States or Israel, which by accounts they have their own nukes. Like, what? None of this makes any sense, other than they just want Iran off the chessboard, and they're acting like unhinged James Bond villains. And Trump has, not surprisingly, but absurdly turned on the best people to go with, like, the worst people who will inevitably turn on him because they actually hate him. So there's all of that. And to make it even worse, Tulsi Gabbard, who was one of the more principled voices in the Trump administration, who said, you know, a couple of weeks ago that just before any of this started, it just caught a lot of people off guard, that Iran was no closer to having a nuclear weapon. And then she uploaded a video about talking about the dangers of nuclear war, and, you know, and the dangers of provoking war. Apparently, you know, the powers that be in the Trump administration got mad at her, and now she just went before Congress and she's like, oh no, actually Iran is 3 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu did not even say that. But the guy pushing for this war, the Prime Minister of Israel, when he was interviewed by Brett Baer on Fox News, he used the same line he's been using for the last 30 years. Oh, well, it'll be about a year to 3 years before they get a nuclear weapon, which he's been saying that since, 1992? Like, it's the same global, if you're a conservative, this is the global warming line. Well, we've got about 10 years before the world becomes apocalyptic, and they've been saying that since the 1970s. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm done, dude. Like, we have the First Amendment, and we have to use it to stop a war, dude. Like, and the fact that there's a lot of MAGA that's speaking out against this is awesome, because this is what people, first of all, it'll show the United States and just the world in general that the populist right is not just blindly monolithic and will not just follow the party line. And number two, there is a lot of anti-establishment elements both within the progressive and populist movements that can and need to work together to stop this, because the MAGA base does not believe in neoconservative interventionism. I don't know anybody that does, and Trump ran as a remedy to this Dick Cheney nonsense. You know, when he went And when Liz Cheney was criticizing Trump for being too isolationist or whatever, his response to her was, "Well, you want a war so badly, why don't you go fight this war?" You know, it's like, yeah, it's you go try to argue with that. You know what's going to be hilarious? God forbid, is if a war does start, what is Barron Trump going to be doing? Like, I'm serious. Like, your son who got you elected president, your son who told you to go on all those podcasts and just be a dude with dudes that got you elected. You know, what is he going to go serve in this war? Probably not. So you're going to go make everybody hate your son because you're coddling him from a needless bloodlust that you're creating. But, or what? He goes and fights in a war and dies for no good reason? Dude, like, here, this is your flesh and blood, man. Like, people like Barron are going to end up dying for no good reason because you're too much of a pussy to stand up to Netanyahu. I've never seen Trump cower to another political leader like this. It's insane. He will get there and ball bust Zelensky. He will get there and, I mean, he'll treat Putin with some respect because I think he sees Putin as like a fellow real estate thug. But like, he'll even call Putin on his bullshit on occasion. He will do nothing other than give Netanyahu everything he wants, and it's never enough. And so one of two things either happened here. Israel either sabotaged the Iran negotiations on purpose so the United States would be dragged into a conflict with them rather before we could get a deal with them, or Trump collaborated with them and the whole negotiations were just bullshit to lure Iran into a Pearl Harbor style attack. Either way, Trump looks like an idiot and evil and stupid because he's either cucked to Netanyahu, who betrayed him, or he's just proven himself to be such a bad faith actor that now nobody's going to take him seriously diplomatically anymore. The only way this could ever possibly work is if this is some kind of insane gambit that is just designed to show Iran that he's insane and that maybe we need to just make a deal with this guy to avoid a catastrophe. That is the only way this could ever possibly work, and that Trump could ever possibly shut up his critics. But he has blown so much of his credibility, and he just is coming off as just these idiot lunatics, like Mark Levin and like these people that think that there's some kind of apocalyptic messianic like force with the way Israel behaves. Like, I was listening to Dave Smith. He's like, this would be if I named my son Jesus Christ and then just let him do whatever he wanted to do because his name was Jesus Christ. I mean, that's literally the level of insanity that a guy who ran as an anti-war candidate with a real grassroots rainbow coalition of good, salt of the earth people. He stabbed those people in the back to go with people that will turn on him and have done nothing but attack and criticize him. So, I don't know, man. I had to just get that off my chest. I've been so pissed about all of this. And I know I probably just turned off a bunch of people, but, and this is bad for Israel, man. Like, it's going to turn a lot of people against Israel and Israel as a project, as a nation state. Man, you do not want this on your resume, dude. So, I don't know, man. There's that.